On this week's show, we continue our celebration of all things Disney Cruise Line with our special guest, Trisha Daab. Welcome to the WDW Reflections Podcast. Here, we'd love to talk about the Walt Disney World Resort, the way we remember it, how it's changed, and why we still enjoy visiting the most magical place on Earth. So come with us on a podcast journey as we reflect on the WDW Reflections Podcast.
I saw a photo also of you with some puppies. What was that about?
Yes, so that was while we were in Juneau. One of our excursions was called a sled dog and mushers camp. They take a helicopter out to a glacier and then you sled dog on the glacier. But the summer one is set up to train the dogs in the summer and then also the babies. So they can't take little teeny tiny puppies up to the glacier either. So what we did is we got on very, very super early in the morning. This excursion started at 7:30 a.m. You get to go on what kind of looks like a golf cart, like a rejigged golf cart, and a sled dog team pulls the golf cart. They do, I think it's like a 2.5 mile track that the dogs run you on. And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's so short, it's so short. Yeah, but it's like painfully hot for these dogs. These dogs are kind of made to be in like 20 degrees and below. So to be pulling a sled full of people in 50, 55-degree weather, they really can't go for that long. And they actually have to make the dog stop a lot of times and like, no, you have to stop and take a drink. And so they pull you and it's amazing. It's so fun. It's crazy how fast you go and you're winding around through this forest and they're pulling you through there. Like one of the themes for our sled dogs was music. And so there was like cassette tape and record album were like two of the dogs' names so that they know these are siblings because you get, these dogs kind of mixed into different sled teams from different litters and that helps them kind of know who's going to get along and such. And then after that, you get to go hold puppies. So we had two sets of puppies. One, they were 10 weeks old and they were in the breakfast items group. So their names were Biscuits and Gravy. But then they came out with 4-week-old husky puppies. So that was a picture you saw was of getting to hold a 4-week-old husky puppy. They were just like the sweetest thing. My one coat still has like just every now and then little like weird dog smell because the dog was like trying to go into the hood of my coat. It was raining at this point and chilly and the dog was like, "You're warm. I'm just going to climb inside." And that was like, oh, I was like, that could have ended the day in Juneau and been great. And the crazy part was by the end of that excursion, it was like 9:30 in the morning and we were in Juneau until 4. So we ended up doing a couple other things in Juneau, but knowing I could be covering, a number of different things for some of the places I write for, I wanted to kind of make sure that I was seeing the stuff that only happens here, things like freezing the night away. This is the only sailing that it's only Alaska that they do this whole set of frozen activities. It was overwhelming with how much was happening on the ship and like how many different things. And you've got special photo ops, you've got the characters, you've got open houses, you've got all of the entertainment activities. I would say I was bad about doing activities until probably like day 6 of the cruise is when I kind of like figured out, hey, you're missing this whole cool thing of like all these activities. And
Did they have
so
a show for you? Did they do any other show other than the Frozen
yeah,
thing?
so we had Golden Mickeys.
Oh, Golden Mickey's, they still do that.
Yeah, we had Golden Mickeys on our first day at sea, and then we had Frozen. Frozen was amazing. I loved how they portrayed Olaf. Yeah, super talented group. Golden Mickeys was really fun. So many things happen only once. Like
Yes.
it really is only once. And that's not necessarily so if you're doing like, 4 nights in a Disney World, yeah, that nighttime show, Happily Ever After in Magic Kingdom you may only have one shot because that's your Magic Kingdom night. But the show's being shown for all 4 nights that you're there. It's just making choices. That's not the case here. If you miss Freezing the Night Away, it's it. If you don't make it to the Frozen musical, that's it. It's if you don't get off the boat in that port, that's it. It's not going back there. So it's not like the next day, oh, you can do all of these things. So I was glad that we did the planning. The port excursions, I just did tons and tons and tons of research to really figure out this is where we want to spend this time. This is what we want to see. And then you hear things when you're out there on the ship. I got to meet the naturalist that was on our boat, and he kind of talks you through on Glacier Day of like, what are you seeing, what's the wildlife and everything. And he was saying you have to see Mendenhall Glacier when you're in Juneau. You have to see it. It's receding, and it's almost to a point that, you know, some people think that it is land-based.
The waterfall was in the glacier. The glacier was on this side of the...
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's receded that much.
Yeah, a lot.
So that means it won't be visible anymore. As they recede, it's like you can only see them in the distance. You can't get anywhere kind of near or close to them because it's just on land, and the only way to see it then becomes by plane. And so it was, you know, okay, now we got to figure out, okay, when we're in Juneau, we have to figure out, we got to squeeze this in. And, you know, then there's that worry of like, oh my gosh, okay, none of the excursions to see Mendenhall are available anymore. And it was like, how do we do this and make sure we get back to the ship in time? And like, aren't those people running on the pier and stuff? So it definitely does take some thought and planning. And we had multiple times where we like just missed something amazing. Like, you know, a bear is just sitting in a creek, like 10 feet from people, like eating salmon.
Did you say earlier you saw some humpback whales?
We did. Icy Strait Point is great for whales. That's another reason to really kind of research your ports and kind of figure out what to do. So there are some folks that Juneau is also great for whale watching, but Juneau was the only place on our trip where you could do the sled dogs. It was the only place where you could have a glacier experience like Mendenhall. So we kind of saved whales for Icy Strait Point, where there was kind of less there that we really wanted to do, and then did the things in Juneau that we couldn't do anywhere else. Yeah, we got to see orcas, we got to see humpbacks, we saw sea lions, we saw otters. And it's really cool because you hop on this boat and all of the captains of all of the ships talk to each other. Oh, we've got a pod over here. This is what they're doing, you know, just trying to help each other and find stuff. And the crew of that ship was amazing. I've really, you're on these boats for like 4 hours. So you end up like building camaraderie with the crew and the passengers on the boat. Everybody's running to one side and running to the other with their binoculars. And, they have limits on how close they can get to any of the wildlife, but if the wildlife moves towards is moving towards the boat, like, and the boat has to stay, it can't move anywhere. You said it's like, this isn't the wild. And the cruise director would every night kind of remind people of that, like, hey guys, just, you know, everybody remember, this is not a Disney park, these are not animatronic whales, these are real whales. We cannot,
these are real things.
The whole thing is so crazy. You're seeing things that like you don't see these things in real life, like just out.
As I mentioned before, there's so much to do and see that it's hard to wrap it all up into one conversation. But let me ask you one last question that I'm curious about. When you take the cruise line from Florida, one of the advantages of that is you get to visit Disney's private island in the Bahamas. What kind of alternative do they have for that in Alaska, or is there one?
There's not. Most of the places that you're going to in Alaska are national parks, and these are protected land. So you're getting to see things kind of other level in that way of in terms of like getting to a place that can only be accessed in this way. These glaciers that I was talking about, the part that's in Endicott Arm, this is the only way we can see them is by boat. I think you can maybe do seaplanes, but with some of those you have to be careful because it's so far from civilization. I think that the crew on the boat said it's about a 3-hour boat ride for them to get back to Juneau from that glacier area. So 3-hour boat ride to get near where we were for that glacier.
Goodness, Trisha, not to be critical or anything, but if next time you're on the show, if you could be a little more enthusiastic about the topic, I would appreciate that. No, I mean, it's fantastic. I can tell. Obviously you love travel, but I mean, you're just beaming from the experience that this cruise offered you. So I think that's fantastic. I learned a ton. Being someone that hasn't been on a cruise, that was a lot of really good information. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
I think that you've sold me from a want to, if I'm going to go to Alaska, you may have sold me on making sure I check Disney out. And Alaska is definitely a cruise that I want to do. I think the last time I priced a cruise, but this was pre-COVID, was probably about 5,000 for an Alaskan cruise for two of us. So based on that, I would guess the cruise would be about 10,000. It doesn't take a lot to sell me on Disney's experience. There's no question you're going to go and you're going to see details that you wouldn't have thought that Disney thinks of. You're going to experience a very family friendly environment versus on some of the cruise ships, you don't always see family friendly for sure. Some are worse at that than others. So I've had the opportunity to cruise quite a bit. I've been on Royal Caribbean, I've been on Carnival, I've been on Virgin, and I would rank all of those for you if anybody asked. But all that being said, I would love to be able to compare it to Disney one day. So maybe one day. It's just so hard when it's literally double.
Probably more like 10 times.
Yeah, but you're getting the ambiance of it. For one thing, you don't have a casino on the Disney ship. So
Right.
people are there with a different mindset. And secondly, is the opulence of a Disney ship. You don't have that on the other cruise ships. When you're on a Disney cruise ship, not only is there things like the pattern in the carpet and all this stuff is themed around some sort
Sure.
of Disney thing, but just the materials are so much better. You're getting what you pay for, basically.
No, I absolutely. I look forward to experiencing it. There's definitely a want to go on a Disney cruise for sure. And I think that I have no question that the quality of the ship is much grander than what I've experienced.
I want to show you. Well, one of the things we were talking about how beautiful the Wonder is. Like, I just
Wow, yeah.
that's one of the reasons sailing out of Vancouver, and Disney only sails out of Vancouver going to Alaska. The views going out of Vancouver and even of the ship itself, that was from our hotel room in Vancouver as the ship was coming in. So it's a port.
Oh,
I think, Jen, to kind of your point of just like how gorgeous this ship looks and feels, it feels very elegant. But I wanted to share like these pictures of, this is a picture of from our room on Glacier Day. So this is kind of a video moving through this navigator's veranda. And so that big opening was all totally open air. And you could see how close we were to land. Like it's just insane. And the interesting part with this room specifically is this style veranda is actually ended up saving us $1,100.
Mm-hmm.
This style room. I almost feel like I hesitate to say it because I feel like Disney's going to figure this out and then change the cost structure. Like, okay, navigators verandas are more expensive on Alaska cruises because that's what you want to do on an Alaska cruise.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of switched with that versus where the tropical cruises
It
are.
is backwards, yes. That style veranda is amazing. You can sleep with your door open because rain can't get in your room. It will rain. It's Alaska. It will rain. If it doesn't, something crazy's happened. But the great part with the navigator's veranda is when we had kind of icky weather, we were still sitting outside on Glacier Day.
So that was in your room.
That was in our room. That was our
So it's a covered balcony, basically?
Yes, a covered balcony
like a window,
with a giant, like almost like screen door size porthole.
Okay, yeah.
And there were chairs out there, and it was slightly bigger than some other verandas. I saw some of the other folks' verandas, like depending on where they were in the ship, it was like deeper, so we could comfortably fit two people out there. No issues whatsoever. It became the backdrop for all the towel animals, like every night.
That's
towel
awesome.
animal. This is the perfect. It's like a picture frame. You saw those pictures. And that was the case with all the ports that we pulled into. So our base cost for the two of us for the cruise, we booked over a year in advance. It was $5,800. And again, part of that was that savings that we got from doing the navigator style veranda room. We were in the aft on the starboard side. I would highly recommend starboard side if you're doing Alaska. Also aft, the weather just doesn't hit the back as bad. We had people that were in the front that were like, that was awful. And everyone in the back's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow, that sounds like incredible pricing, actually.
Yes, and the thing that I had to remember, I'm not a cruiser, so that included every meal. You don't have to spend any more money than that. There's no requirement. You don't have to get a special drinks. It includes all the soft drinks
Yeah.
and things like that. It includes coffee. Like if you want to go get a fancy coffee, yeah, that costs extra. If you want alcohol, it costs extra. We
They
did
include soft drinks?
Yes.
Yes.
And up on the top deck, they have the machines where you can get it all the time. You can get room service 24/7.
yes.
And in between regular dining room meals, like we were talking about, like Tiana's, blah, 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 they have the top deck is open with chicken fingers and stuff
Sure.
like that, pizza.
Buffets.
Which you would
And
expect.
then
yeah.
there's a buffet that runs almost 12 hours a day. It basically breakfast closes and it opens for lunch like a half hour later, et cetera, et cetera. So if you don't want to go to the dining area, you know, your dinner, your assigned dinner, you don't have to go to your assigned dinner.
But on the days of excursions, if you really don't want to go anywhere and there's something on the ship that you just want to enjoy, let's say you just want to enjoy a peaceful day, getting sunshine or lying by the pool or going exploring the spa, the best day to do that is on the excursion days because most of the ship is off doing something else. We had been given free spa passes. The spa experience, I had that entire thing all to myself. There was not a single soul in sight. Everybody was off doing something, and I got to have the hot tub, the sauna,
Rainforest thing.
the rainforest showers. I had all of that all to myself, and it was great. So if you don't feel like going out, if you have a member of your family that doesn't feel or is able to go on those excursions with you, there are things like that that are just great to experience.
Well, I think that's a other good point is that if you don't book excursions, you don't have to book excursions. Everything still happens on the ship. Like when the ship is docked in the tropical ones at Castaway Cay and Lighthouse Point, everything on the ship is still working.
Happening.
It's still there, you know?
Well, and I would say that was one of the weird things with Alaska is you get on the ship and you're in Vancouver. And so we got on, I think our boarding time was 11:30. So we were on the ship maybe by like 12:45. The first time we stepped on lands was in Icy Strait Point. And you don't kind of realize. And so that was 4 days, almost 4 days. Because the glacier, you're not getting on land. The ship is just anchored. It's not, there's no docks, there's no piers, it's not a town or a city. You're in the middle of a national park essentially. And you got to walk on a big long pier to get to the land. So it's like you're finally on land. And it's kind of a weird feeling that first time. I didn't really have a lot of seasickness issues on the boat. I had like 1 or 2 nights that I took something. But I will say when I got back, that's when it hit me hard. I got the whole like weird, everything's still wrapped. I was sitting at the hotel in Vancouver Airport, like the hotel's not moving right. The Alaska landscape is changing every year. It is. Anyone you talk to, they have a time lapse of Mendenhall Glacier. It's going away. There's an entire lake that 40 years ago was not there, that is now there. That's another piece to kind of think about when you take a cruise to somewhere like this, that this is a place that's never going to look like this again. And that was where we made the decision of, okay, we're going to do the $1,100. We're going to do the $1,100 less, but we're not going to go to an inside stateroom because this probably won't happen again. Yes, we're going to pay that. The Glacier Explorer is $309 a person. It's a 3 to 4 hour excursion. That's a lot of money, but totally worth it because when am I ever going to be in a quarter mile of a glacier, drinking a glacierita again? Like it's probably not going to happen. So I'm really glad it did because it probably won't. So it's something with a cruise like this that I would say this is the one, like, this is the investment one. And again, I'm biased view because this is the one I've experienced, but just from what I've seen with some other folks that cruised frequently, had even done Alaska before, they were like, if you're going to do it and you want to do it right, this is the way to do it. And this is the cruise line. The locals love Disney. And that says a lot when you're in a place and the locals really speak to how quality the cruise line is too.
Trisha, I really appreciate some of the insight and some of the. I'm looking forward to your article. Actually, you've sold me definitely on Disney to Alaska, and it's good to hear that kind of some of the excursions that I need to plan for that may be a little more pricier than what I was anticipating, but worth, like you're saying, it definitely, there's some things that are worth a little bit more when you know it's going to be a once in a lifetime thing.
Hey, Trisha, we truly appreciate this conversation. We could go on and on.
Yeah.
There's so much to
much.
cover because it's really a lot of fun. I mean, we didn't even talk about our trip, so this is great. And I appreciate you reaching out and letting us know about this trip. It's nice to hear about what's been going on and that the quality is still there. Our last trip was back in 2013,
Don't say it.
2013, almost 11 years ago. I know.
Oh, and
So,
fun fact, the Alaska costumes that the characters are using are the ones they took from Canada because we went on the first Canada cruise. That's what they were wearing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I think it's the only place now that you can get those ones is at least what we were told by Disney is like that's the only cruise that like Mickey's the fisherman and Mickey's a beautiful coat.
Yeah, Donald in his plaid shirt and yeah.
Yeah, Goofy is a lumberjack.
Give the big goofy dog an axe. That's a great idea. So, that was amazing. I will have to tell you, I am not a cold weather fella. I probably won't be taking the Alaska, but what I am, I'm intrigued by the Hawaii, Australia thing you were talking about. That one, I would probably be all over. So I'm going to look into that. As amazing as Alaska sounds, you were like, it's Alaska, even, you're not going to get 80. And I'm like, 80 is the minimum I want to experience. So that was awesome. I just did a quick, really fast little bit of what's happening around Walt Disney World research. And it's actually not going to be Walt Disney World today because it's going to be Disney Cruise Line connected, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So, as we know, the Disney Cruise Line ships are packed with subtle and not so subtle Disney details, but one of the most beloved is the ship's horns, which plays various melodies from iconic Disney songs. So, the Disney Treasure, which I believe is one of the upcoming ships, is going to feature 7 new arrangements that play on its horn, including songs from the Haunted Mansion, Coco, and Aladdin. So that just came out a couple days ago. I thought that was super cool. I thought that I would throw that in there since Disney Cruise Line theme today. So that's it for what's going on. Let's talk about what's your favorite. This is probably going to be one of the hardest ones we've done before, and the theme of this show inspired this question. I'm going to take care of it today. So each episode, one of the hosts brings with them a question to ask the other 2, and in this case, 4 people here today. So this is cool. This might be the most we've ever had. The growing talent on this show, it's unreal. So here we go. It's a little bit different, but I want to know this, y'all. If you were going to name one of the next Disney Cruise Line vessels, what would be your favorite new cruise ship name? So just to ensure we don't try using something that's already been in use, here is the current Disney Cruise Line ship names in alphabetical order: Disney Adventure, Disney Destiny, Disney Dream, Disney Fantasy, Disney Magic, Disney Treasure, Disney Wish, and Disney Wonder. So, panelists, here is your chance to be a Disney Cruise Line Imagineer. Name your ship. Who wants to go first? All right. I told you it's going to be a hard one.
I actually have a couple in mind since since this was first announced, and I'm going to go. My favorite idea for a ship, obviously, these are based on their IPs, and on the rear of the ship, they've got a little character hanging out that represents what's going on, as well as the statue. I would love to see the Disney Galaxy, and by having a ship called Disney Galaxy, you can have. It'll probably be Grogu, but a little Star Wars character at the back.
Tony, that's amazing. I love that. Galaxy, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, the best thing I could come up with is the Tomorrow, because we've been naming the lands of the parks: Adventureland, Fantasyland.
Oh, true.
Oh, okay. I hadn't made that connection. That's That's pretty good. I like that. So Disney tomorrow, who would be the character on your in your atrium and all that?
I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea. Or do we have a Discovery already?
I don't believe so.
That would be a good one too.
Discovery's good. And I like Discovery. There was a space shuttle named Discovery. That's even cool.
Oh, or Imagination, and we could put Figment on it.
Oh, that's it. I'm shutting it down. I'm
Disney
turning off.
Imagination.
You just took mine.
Oh no.
You took mine. I protest. I protest. We're fighting next time we meet. That's okay. I have a couple backups, but I don't have any characters associated with it. I was going to do Imagine, and I was going to do Figment. We are so fighting, Jen. It's on. Boo, Jen. No, that was really good, and you came up with it super quick. Nice work. I'm not mad at you anymore.
Okay.
All right. So during that altercation, Ron, Trisha, that should have given you a minute or two to figure something out. Ron's cartoon face looks confused. He's like,
No, I've got one.
All right, sweet. Let's go. What you got?
It's a little unique and maybe not, but Disney Jungle. And go with the Tarzan theme.
Oh, okay. Instead of that water thing on the top, you could do like a zip line. You could have
there you go.
Have ropes to swing on or something, right?
Yeah.
I don't hate that idea. That's
That one
cool.
could come out of the continents as well.
Well, you have the Jungle Book IP as well as Tarzan. You can
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
Ron, look at you being an Imagineer.
There you go.
And not stealing someone else's idea, by the way. That was pretty cool. All right, Trisha, what you got? It looks like you've been writing something down. You're referring to notes.
Oh, well, that's me. I like write everything down. I feel like I'm like failing as a writer here. I'm looking around trying to get inspired. I liked the Imagination one. My idea was kind of playing on something with Imagineers. And the Imagination was perfect. I'm trying to think of like any other like Walt phrases. That curiosity, I guess. I think that's another spaceship, like a Disney curiosity, but I'm like,
that's a good one.
Good. Thank you. Well, thanks for the stump. Difficult question there, Dewey.
Well, see, I knew it was going to be hard, and for me, it's even harder when someone steals your genius idea.
And it's Figment on there, like, come on,
man. I was going to sell it, man. Mine was going to have the Imagination pyramids on one of the deck. I mean, I was going to sell it, and freaking ruined it. Jen ruined it. But so I don't have any characters to associate. I have a couple of names I thought about, but I don't have any characters to associate with it because my number one idea that I mentioned was stolen. So I had Envision, I had Surprise, and I had Amaze. So I don't know what characters would go with those, but those are just a couple of buzzwords that came to mind. And of course, Imagine was the first one I wrote. It would be
Kind of fun if they call it the Disney Reflection.
Now, Tony, I swear I thought that, and I was like, I don't know, is that cheesy? It would be too cheesy to say on the show. Yeah. So, well, then how about we build a cruise ship, and that's what we'll call it.
There you go.
Yes, maybe we can get Disney.
You could have it be everything the old Epcot for Dewey.
All right, y'all. Well, that just about does it for this episode of the WDW Reflections podcast. Please find and follow us on all our social media accounts. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok at WDW Reflections Podcast. And don't forget, you can always message us from any of those social media accounts, or you can email us at wdwreflectionspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And please keep coming back and having a listen with us because we truly appreciate you. Thank you for reflecting on Walt Disney World memories, and in this case, Disney Cruise Line memories, with us on the WDW Reflections podcast.
See you real soon.